On Rue du Temple, where Marais windows reflected 1,000 versions of the sky, they hung the sign themselves. Maison C&E. Camille tied the black ribbon with a practiced tug, her honey blonde bob wig falling in a precise line against her jaw. Élise steadied the ladder, auburn waves of her lace wig tucked neatly behind one ear. They had rehearsed this day since design school, sketching on café napkins, arguing about sleeve lengths, whispering about how they'd keep their friendship clean when success got messy. The boutique smelled of cedar and citrus peel. Mannequins wore their signature balance, Élise's soft drape and subversive seams, Camille's crisp tailoring and architectural silhouettes. They kept a rack by the window for found pieces, vintage scarves and belts rescued from flea markets along the Seine. A glass case held wigs they designed for styling sessions. Classic, natural textures in 9 shades, cut to look like effortlessness had always been the plan. They were best friends and business partners, and the rhythms of their days fitted like bespoke. Camille handled clients who needed to be charmed in 2 minutes, hotel concierges, a gallery owner who never smiled, a model who asked for something like power but French. Élise ran the atelier, music low, chalk on her fingers, the hum of a well-oiled machine. At noon they walked across Place de Vosges. At 5 they juggled deliveries into Camille's cream Audi A3 cabriolet and Élise's midnight blue Mini Cooper, swearing the entire time that Parisians didn't know how to park. Their friends orbited easily around the boutique. Mia, a PR consultant with a phone that never slept, roped them into press previews and brunch-length interviews. Jules from the cafe next door showed up with cinnamon swirls and gossip. The evenings often ended with the 4 of them on the shop's vintage sofa, reviewing photos for the boutique's channel, reels of fittings, close-ups of hems, a slow-motion clip of Camille swishing a silk trench at the Pont Neuf. There were boyfriends too, complications that arrived in handsome packaging. Marc, an architect who loved clean lines and rules, was Camille's softness and challenge. He kept telling her to optimize the operations, which made her laugh and kiss him on the cheek, even when spreadsheets were the last thing she wanted to see. Étienne, a jazz guitarist with a gaze like a late-night metro platform, shadowed, expectant, had found his way into Élise's quiet. He played Thelonious Monk in the kitchen while she drafted. He said things like, "Don't edit your heart out of the seams." At closing, Camille touched the sign again. They had earned the right to be exactly here. Success felt possible and intimate, a dress you could slip into without a zipper. Neither of them saw the tiny fissure spidering across the mirror behind the counter, a hairline crack that came from nowhere and meant nothing. Or so they believed. 2 months later, the boutique smelled like peonies and fresh press. Their channel had blown up after a reel of Camille in a navy-wrapped dress. One toss of the hem, a laugh that wasn't planned, the Eiffel cutting the sky behind her. DMs pinged, stylists asked for loaners, a celebrity requested, "The dress that felt like I was a person who remembers her own spine." That's when Sabine arrived. She wore a suit that said billable and perfume that said don't ask. Mia vouched for her, she's plugged into every editor, every showroom, and they signed a short contract for representation. Sabine's phone flashed like a signal tower as she barked in perfect chilly English. "We will scale your story. Dual founders. Best friends. French craft with modern edge." Then came the email, the subject line that made the air thinner. Maison Delatour, exclusive ambassadorship. Camille read it aloud under her breath. "They want me. A year of appearances, creative input on a capsule, editorial shoots. Me?" Her hand hovered over the trackpad as if touching the words might revoke them. Mia squealed. Jules dropped a tray. Étienne, who'd stopped by with sunflower seeds and a smile, clapped Camille on the shoulder. "Of course it's you," he said. "You are a camera's favorite sentence." Élise smiled too, because that is what best friends do when the person they love is seen. She told Camille she'd drive her to the first meeting. She pushed the wig case toward her, the chestnut lob, it photographs like a whisper. She packed the lookbook she'd stayed up perfecting. And still, something inside pricked like a pin. There would be photos with Camille's name first. There would be captions that forgot the and in Maison C&E. She hated herself for thinking it. She thought it anyway. Sabine swept in, efficient. "The brand requested Camille alone," she said, not looking at Élise. "We don't want to dilute the image. Once she lifts, the boutique lifts. Can we ask for joint credits?" Élise said, the words careful on her tongue. "We don't bargain with queens," Sabine replied. "We reveal the crown you already have." The meeting at Maison Delatour was all white walls and controlled glances. Camille surprised herself. Her voice didn't wobble. Her ideas, structured sleeves to balance romance, pockets deep enough to matter, landed like precise darts. The creative director leaned back, charmed. "You are exactly what we need," he said. A photographer adjusted the light and murmured, "Stay like that," and Camille did, a metaphor and a fact. On the drive back, Camille talked too fast. She would negotiate studio time, she said. She would make sure the capsule carried their boutique's line of wigs, subtle and real. She promised, never let a caption erase a seam Élise had sewn. Élise nodded, fingers tight on the wheel. "I know," she said and wanted to. She parked by the river, and they watched a boat lift its own reflection. Jealousy is rarely a thunderclap. It is a drizzle that slicks the pavement and makes ordinary steps treacherous. That night, Marc opened a bottle of Sancerre. "You should celebrate," he said to Camille, "and you should separate the accounts. The boutique's exposure and your personal brand are two different entities." Camille didn't want to talk about accounts. She wanted to talk about how it felt to be chosen without guilt. She texted Élise a heart. Élise put her phone in a drawer and kept sketching, redrawing a sleeve until the paper thinned. Momentum multiplied. Maison C&E posted a behind-the-scenes clip. Camille's followers tripled. Clients arrived asking for the Camille trench. The boutique's appointments filled, but coordination frayed where friendship and business overlapped. Sabine booked Camille for a magazine cover the same weekend as their spring preview. "We can move the preview," she said. "Press is not a bus you can catch the next day." "We promised our clients," Élise replied. "Half of them prepaid." Sabine tilted her head. "Then over-deliver. Isn't resourcefulness your brand?" It wasn't the kind of question that expects an answer. Camille tried to be in two places at once. She Ubered between a pale studio in the 8th and the boutique in the 3rd, makeup setting spray still cool on her skin. She filmed captions in the back of her Audi, the city blurring into a suggestion of itself. She meant to post a carousel crediting Élise tailoring on the feature coat. She forgot, then remembered too late, then posted anyway at midnight when the algorithm had gone to bed. Small things began to snag. Élise accidentally sent the wrong time for a fitting to a client who only wanted Camille. A seam ripper vanished and reappeared in the freezer. The wig order Camille placed for the editorial got delayed because the vendor received two conflicting emails. Étienne played quieter music in the kitchen, watching the way Élise stared at a blank page like it owed her an apology. When he asked what was wrong, she said, "I can't figure out the sleeve head," and he knew sleeves weren't the point. Marc took Camille to a gallery opening and told her, with loving precision, that she needed a chief of operations. "Your life is a mood board without a production schedule," he said, and squeezed her hand in a way that meant support and also do it my way. Camille laughed and then didn't sleep for 2 nights. The spring preview limped forward. Clients came. Jules pumped espresso like a saint. Mia spun gold out of delayed shipments. At 4, a blogger posted a story, "Is Maison C&E actually just Camille?" The photos were all Camille, Camille in blue light, Camille tying belts, Camille smiling, the camera's favorite sentence repeated until it became an accusation. That night, rain stitched a diagonal across the shop window. Camille locked up. Élise checked the till. "Tell me we're okay," Camille said, a child and a CO at once. "Of course," Élise said and brushed an invisible thread from Camille's sleeve. Her touch was careful, like handling something delicate you hadn't admitted you'd dropped. In the silence that followed, jealousy found a chair and sat down. The unraveling didn't begin with a fight, it began with a spreadsheet. Camille opened a shared folder marked press and saw a document she didn't recognize. Influencer allocations, Sabine. Inside were dates and fees, tiered commissions, and a column with a venomous shine. Bonus if solo talent signed 25%. Under Maison C&E, the bonus glowed green. Another tab showed an email exchange in which Sabine wrote, "We keep messaging clean. Camille is the face. Partner can be referenced as atelier support when necessary." Partner. Atelier support. Élise had become a function in someone else's narrative. A horrible logic assembled itself in Camille's mind. The conflicting emails. The rescheduled fittings. The way Sabine always angled conversations so Camille seemed like a solo act. It wasn't Élise who was unwinding them. It was Sabine threading them into a one-girl story and getting paid extra to do it. Camille went hunting for proof and found too much. A draft press release with Élise's name misspelled. A DM from a junior editor. Sabine said Élise doesn't do press. True? A memo to Maison C&E's team recommending that the boutique play second fiddle to a singular star. Camille's stomach tilted. She forwarded the file to Mia with one sentence. "Is this normal?" Mia called immediately, her voice low. "It's not criminal, but it's the laziest kind of PR. We should have set the boundaries. I should have. I'm sorry. You need to shut this down. By the time Camille reached the boutique, the sky had bruised. Élise was closing the curtain on a fitting room, the client glowing in a midnight dress that had started as a joke and became a wish granted. You're early, Élise said, smiling. The smile died when she saw Camille's face. What happened? Camille slid the laptop across the counter. Sabine's spreadsheet opened like a confession. Élise's cheeks colored and drained. She pressed her palms to the glass as if bracing the world. So I'm atelier support, she said, each word crisper than the last. And you? I didn't know, Camille said, the truth and not enough. I swear. And if you had? Élise asked. Would you have said no? They stood in the ring of light from the pendant lamp, two women cut by the same pattern, now noting the asymmetry. Outside, Marc texted dinner, and Étienne texted a photo of a bridge with the caption, "We'll fix whatever this is." Neither message reached the part of the story that mattered. Sabine barged in without knocking. We need to talk strategy, she said, dropping a folder. The magazine wants Camille for a standalone. We will pivot the boutique content to secondary narratives, craft, behind the scenes, that sort of. Get out, Élise said, and the gentleness drained from her voice. Sabine blinked. Excuse me? Camille found a steel she didn't know she had. You're fired, she said. We're terminating the contract. Sabine looked amused. You can't fire someone when you're drowning. Watch us, Camille said. Sabine left with a shrug that dared gravity to work. After the door slammed, silence layered the room. I should have seen it sooner, Camille whispered. You didn't want to, Élise said, not cruelly. Neither did I. The argument that followed wasn't loud, it was surgical. They cut into sentences and pulled out unspoken things. How Camille loved the camera and felt guilty for it, how Élise needed credit without having to announce her brilliance every morning. Tears came when they spoke about the boutique's first return, the day they couldn't afford more hangers, the seam they unpicked together because the fabric deserved it. They cried because loyalty is a seam too, and sometimes you have to stitch it twice. At the end, there was a tenuous decision. Pause new press, call Maison C&E in the morning, renegotiate everything or walk away. Together, Camille said. Together, Élise echoed. The word hung between them like a bridge they'd have to cross again and again. At dawn, the tiny fissure behind the counter fractured into a visible crack. Jules noticed first. Bad luck, he said, knocking lightly on wood and promising to replace it. Camille laughed, then stopped. Superstition felt suddenly practical. They called Maison C&E. The creative director listened, sighed, and said what men with budgets often say, we have a campaign calendar. We can include Élise where convenient, but the face we signed is Camille. He was polite. He was a door made of velvet. Then we're out, Camille replied. The sentence trembled and stood. After the call, adrenaline ebbed and fear rushed in. What if the channel flatlined? What if clients believed that losing a big name meant the boutique had downgraded from promise to cautionary tale? Marc said all the right things. Reserve funds, contingency plans, but his advice sounded like tidy furniture in a hurricane. He didn't mean to be unhelpful. He simply didn't know what it costs to turn yourself into a brand and then decide to be a person again. Étienne understood, maybe too much. Let them have their singular star, he told Élise, pouring coffee black. Your work is the instrument, the right listeners will always find it. He kissed her temple and said he was proud. She cried into his sweater, mortified, grateful. Mia convened a war room, really a pile of croissants and a whiteboard. We pivot to what you actually are, she said. A boutique with two geniuses and a community. We'll build a design diary series around Élise, and a client story series around Camille. Every piece of content will credit both. We borrow beauty from the city, bridges, laundrettes, stairwells. We make the captions full sentences, not slogans. They posted the first clip that afternoon. Élise showing how a shoulder seam moves when the wearer lifts a child. Camille talking about pockets as dignity. The comments came in hot. This is what fashion is. Keep the duo, we came for the trench. We stayed for the friendship. The algorithm didn't clap, but it nodded. At closing, a spring storm muscled across Paris. A leak opened above the wig case. Water dotted the boxes like an accusation. Élise climbed the ladder, toolkit in hand. She stretched to tape a plastic sheet and slipped. In slow, awful time she lost balance. Camille's body moved before thought, catching her by the waist. The ladder banged the floor, water splattered, their hearts hamster wheeled. They collapsed on the rug, soaked and laughing with that ragged relief that feels like grace. We nearly drowned our own hair, Camille said, wiping her cheek. We nearly drowned our own story, Élise replied. They sat there among the drip buckets and ruined tissue paper and decided two things. First, they would design their own spring capsule. 7 pieces, modular, pocketed, something you could live real life in. Second, they would host a salon night at the boutique and invite friends and clients to talk about the moments when envy nearly broke them and what they built instead. Before they closed, they swapped their wigs, Camille in auburn waves, Élise in the blunt blonde bob, then took a selfie in the cracked mirror, both of them grinning with the stubbornness of women who refuse to be made small. The caption read, "New parting. Same heads." The city watched them sew themselves back together. The Design Diary series hooked people who were tired of seeing clothes only on bodies that never spill coffee. In one episode, Élise marked a dart while Mia read comments aloud, "I never knew why my dress pulled when I hugged my kid. Thanks for explaining." In another, Camille styled a client going on a first date after a divorce, tucking a note into the pocket. "You're not a comeback, you're a sequel." They formalized their lanes. Camille took lead on styling, client relations and public-facing content. Élise helmed design, production and the atelier. Credit templates got written into the content calendar. Every caption ended with "Designed by Élise. Renard is styled by Camille Duvall, Maison C&E." Mia drafted a press release under their names, not Sabine's, and had it translated into the kind of French that bends and doesn't break. They hosted the salon night with chairs borrowed from the cafe and champagne falling like a promise. People spoke into the courage of the room. Jules confessed he once sabotaged a co-worker's playlist to get a better shift. Mia admitted she'd underbilled herself for years to keep a client who didn't deserve her. A client named Amélie said she watched her younger sister's startup soar and felt bitterness like a stone in her throat, until she realized the stone was fear she could name and walk around. Camille told the story of Delatour with no villains, only systems that reward the neat narrative of a singular muse. "We're not muses," she said, fingers worrying the stem of her glass. "We're makers. It's messier to sell, but it wears better." Élise spoke about jealousy like a weather pattern, predictable, survivable. "It rained," she said. "We got wet. We learned where to put the buckets." Marc, chair angled against the wall, listened. Later he pulled Camille aside. "I was trying to help you not drown," he said. "But I was throwing you rocks shaped like advice." Camille smiled soft. "You were trying to build me a dock," she said. "Next time ask me where the shore is." He kissed her, apology and future stitched together. Étienne found Élise in the workroom, traced the chalk on her knuckles like a map. "You played the solo," he said, "and it sounded like the band." She laughed into his shirt and whispered "thank you," a phrase that sometimes means I'm still learning how to accept love that doesn't add conditions. When the capsule collection was ready, Mia orchestrated a street runway, no risers, no backstage, just 7 friends and 7 looks, walking down Rue du Temple at golden hour. The wigs were theirs, the chestnut lob, the blunt bob, a glossy shoulder-length cut with a side part that meant business. Pockets held bus tickets, lipstick, receipt paper with poems. People stopped and clapped because joy is contagious when it feels earned. In the shop window, they replaced the cracked mirror with 2 narrower ones set side by side, separated by a thin strip of oak. The reflection doubled you, then made you choose a perspective. They left it that way on purpose. Summer pressed in like a satisfied sigh. Orders came from Lyon in Lisbon and a shop in Copenhagen that wrote, "We want your pockets and your story." The boutique's books steadied. The channel found a rhythm that looked like 2 hearts in conversation. Maison Delatour sent a polite note, "Door remains open." Camille deleted it without ceremony. Some doors you don't walk back through, even if they smell like money. They drove to a client fitting in tandem. Camille in the cream Audi with the roof down, Élise in the midnight Mini with a garment bag hung like a promise. They parked crooked and laughed at themselves. "We're fashionable, not spatially aware," Camille said, twirling her key ring. Inside, they styled a woman named Noor who had just landed her first book deal and felt fraudulent in any dress that didn't include a hoodie. Camille chose the navy wrap, of course she did, and paired it with the shoulder-length wig, whispering, "You don't have to be someone else, you just have to be all the way yourself." Élise pinched the waist, let out the hip, and taught Noor how to move her arms without pulling the shoulder seam. Noor cried. They pretended not to notice until she wanted them to. That night they ate on the floor of the atelier, cheese, strawberries, a baguette that Jules insisted was blessed, and took turns reading comments aloud. "Your clothes make me feel competent." "I showed my daughter your pocket video, she demanded pockets at Zara. My best friend and I fought. We watched your salon night and sent each other long messages. We're meeting to try again." Camille leaned back on a pile of muslin and thought of the girl who loved the camera and felt shame about it. She could love it now without apologizing to other parts of herself. She drafted a caption. When they ask why two founders, we say, because we wanted a more accurate mirror. She tagged Élise first, as if to reset an algorithm that lives in more places than social media. Élise scrolled through the lookbook for the next season, sketching in the margins. A coat that could hold a dog-eared paperback, a blazer with an inside pocket for a spare earring and a secret. She sent a text to Camille. What if we call the next collection Deux Mains, Two Hands? Camille typed back, 2 hands. 1 heart. Let's sew it. Marc, whose advice had learned new manners, offered to connect them with a logistics firm only if they wanted it. They wanted it. Étienne booked a trio for the next salon night and wrote a song inspired by a dress that made space where women usually tuck apology. He titled it Oak Strip, for the piece of wood between the mirrors. On a slow Sunday, they took their cars to the edge of the city and watched planes cut the sky into orderly lanes. Do you ever think about what would have happened if we'd said yes to Delatour's terms? Camille asked. We would have been famous faster, Élise said, then shrugged. And lonelier longer. They slid back into their cars, wigs catching the light like punctuation marks. Back in the boutique, they printed 2 new rules and taped them by the register. Credit out loud. When jealousy reigns, hold the umbrella together. Later, a girl came in with a friend who hovered like a shadow. The girl touched a blazer, glanced at the price, stepped back. Camille offered a payment plan without making it sound like mercy. Élise showed the friend how to roll a cuff so it said I belong here instead of I borrowed this life. They rang up the sale. The shadow looked a little less like a weather report and a little more like someone who might dance. Before closing, they took a photo in the twin mirrors. Camille in the lob, Élise in the bob, both with the contentment that comes after a hard fix. The caption read, we used to dream about being seen. Now we dream about seeing each other well. Maison C&E.